hadn't planned on getting a new roommate. Honestly, I was kind of enjoying having the place to myself for a while. After Rob moved out to live with his girlfriend, I figured I'd take a few months to just breathe. No shared fridge space, no disappearing laundry detergent, no awkward late-night run-ins in the hallway when one of us had company over. It was quiet. And lonely. Too quiet, maybe. So when I got a text from my landlord saying someone had taken the second room starting next month, I wasn't exactly thrilled. I had vaguely agreed to subletting, but I thought it would take longer. "He's already signed the lease," she said when I called to ask. "It's just for 6 months. You'll like him. Very chill guy." Chill guy. That phrase always sets off alarm bells. Then came move-in day. I had just gotten out of the shower when I heard the front door open. I quickly tossed on a t-shirt and sweats and padded into the living room, towel still around my neck. He was standing there, holding a box, looking a little lost. Tall. Really tall. Like, definitely had trouble in airplane seats tall. Black hair, kind of messy like he had just woken up but in a good way. Dark jeans, hoodie, scuffed boots, and the kind of face that made you pause for half a second too long before saying anything. Hey," I said, clearing my throat. He looked up and smiled, a little crooked, a little shy. "Hey, I'm Jamie," I held out my hand. "Eli. You're the new roommate?" "Yeah. Sorry if I'm early. I didn't know if I'd hit traffic. I can wait downstairs if you want to finish up whatever you were doing." "You're good," I said quickly. "No worries. Come on in." He stepped fully inside and looked around. "It's nicer than I expected." "Thanks. It's nothing fancy, but it works." I motioned toward the hallway. "Your room's at the end on the right." He nodded and disappeared with the box. I stood there for a second, weirdly aware of the way my shirt clung to my damp skin, then shook it off. This was just temporary. 6 months. I didn't need to get to know this guy. We'd coexist, exchange polite hellos, and go our separate ways. But it never works out that cleanly, does it? Jamie settled in fast. The first few days were mostly quiet, some unpacking, rearranging, the occasional thump of furniture against the wall. We exchanged basic info, where the trash bags were, how to jiggle the handle on the toilet so it doesn't keep running, which cabinet not to trust because the hinge gave out 2 years ago and never got fixed. I figured we'd leave it at that, surface level coexisting. But Jamie didn't exactly stick to that script. It started with little things. A hey in the morning that turned into, "How'd you sleep?" A joke about my terrible coffee that somehow led to a 20-minute conversation about our worst jobs. Turns out, we both once worked at the same movie theater chain, just different cities. Then one night, a few weeks in, I came home late after a brutal shift and found him on the couch eating cold noodles straight from the pot. He looked up, mouth full, and offered me some without hesitation. I don't know why, but I sat down and grabbed a fork. We ended up watching reruns of Top Chef until almost 2 a.m., talking about food we'd never make, places we wanted to travel. It felt easy, like we'd been friends for years. There was something about the way he looked at me when I talked, like he was actually listening. Most people just wait for their turn to speak. Jamie didn't. A few nights later, I heard music coming from his room. Not loud, just soft enough to be a mood. I paused outside his door, then knocked. He opened it. Hair damp from a shower, hoodie sleeves pushed up, a glass of wine in his hand. "Didn't mean to bother you," he said. "Just had one of those nights, you know?" I nodded. "Yeah, I know. Want to come in?" I hesitated. And then, I didn't. The room was still half unpacked, but cozy. Candles. Some old Polaroids taped to the wall. A sketchbook open on the desk. He handed me the extra glass without asking. We sat on the floor, backs against the bed. Talked about family, breakups, why he left his last apartment. "Things got messy," was all he said. He didn't elaborate. I didn't push. That night didn't end in anything dramatic. No sudden kiss. No drunken confession. Just a lingering silence after we ran out of stories. Just a moment where we looked at each other too long before he said, "I should sleep." But the air had shifted. After that, I started noticing things. Like how he always walked around barefoot, even when it was freezing. Or how he played with the strings on his hoodie when he was nervous. Or how he sometimes paused mid-sentence, like he was deciding whether he could trust me with the rest. And I noticed myself noticing, which was the bigger problem. By the time October hit, our lives had quietly entangled. It wasn't on purpose, it just happened. He'd be in the kitchen when I got back from work. I'd find his laundry still warm in the dryer and fold it without thinking. He started leaving post-it notes on the fridge with dumb jokes or passive-aggressive reminders like, "Replace the damn oat milk." He wasn't just a roommate anymore. He was part of the daily rhythm, and it was killing me. Not because I didn't like it. I did. Too much. And that was the problem. I'd catch myself watching him stir his coffee in the morning and wonder what his mouth would feel like. Or I'd hear him humming through the walls and feel this ridiculous warmth crawl into my chest. One night, we had a few drinks. Nothing crazy. Just beer and a random documentary playing in the background. At some point, Jamie kicked his feet up on the couch and leaned against me like it was nothing. Just leaned. His head resting against my shoulder, warm, solid, casual. He didn't move for almost an hour. Neither did I. When he finally sat up, he stretched, looked at me through half-lidded eyes and said, "You're easy to be around, you know that?" I didn't know how to respond, so I said nothing. But inside, everything felt too loud. The next morning, he acted like it didn't happen. Poured cereal, asked if I'd remembered to water the plant in the hallway. No sign of tension. No sign of questions. That was Jamie's specialty. He could tiptoe up to the edge of something real, and then retreat before you noticed. But I noticed. I noticed it when he started wearing my hoodie around the apartment. The navy one with the stretched out cuffs that no one ever borrowed but him. He never asked. He just started wearing it like it belonged to him. I noticed it when he started staying in more. "Nah, I'll just chill here tonight," he'd say when his phone buzzed with invites. Sometimes he'd just sit at the kitchen counter while I cooked, making fun of my cutting technique or adding random spices to the pan like he was the damn Food Network. And then there were the glances. That kind of glance. The kind that lingers for half a second too long. That scans your mouth before returning to your eyes. The kind of glance you feel in your skin. It all came to a head on a Thursday. I was working late in my room, headphones on, trying to finish a project that was due the next day. At some point, I looked up and saw Jamie standing in my doorway, arms crossed, eyes unreadable. "Do you ever wonder," he said slowly, "if maybe we're not just roommates?" I pulled off my headphones. "What?" He stepped inside. Just a step. "I mean, this whole thing, it doesn't feel like a normal roommate situation." I didn't breathe. Jamie scratched the back of his neck. "Maybe I'm crazy, but sometimes I catch you looking at me like..." He trailed off. I stood up, heart pounding. "Like what?" He looked at me, really looked. "Like you want to kiss me." Silence, heavy, electric. I could have lied, could have laughed it off. Instead, I said, "Yeah, I do." Jamie didn't move for a second. Then he nodded once, almost to himself, like he'd expected that answer, like he was just waiting for me to say it out loud. And then he left. Didn't say another word. Just turned around and walked back to his room, closing the door softly behind him. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't see him the next morning. His bedroom door was shut and the kitchen was quiet. No dishes in the sink, no running water, no smell of the obnoxiously healthy protein pancakes he sometimes made. Just stillness. I left for work without knocking. Figured he needed space. Or maybe I did. All day, I was useless. Emails blurred together. I responded to the same Slack message 3 times. Every spare second, I replayed what happened, or didn't happen, the night before. Like you want to kiss me. Yeah, I do. And then he left. Was it a test? A setup? A door cracked open that I didn't walk through fast enough? When I got home, his bedroom door was still closed. I hovered outside it for a second before forcing myself to walk away. If he wanted to talk, he would. I showered, ate leftover pasta, watched a movie I couldn't follow. At some point, I fell asleep on the couch. Around 1 a.m., I woke up to the sound of his door opening. Footsteps. Slow, hesitant. I sat up, heart in my throat. Jamie stood in the hallway, hair messy, hoodie unzipped over a tank top. He looked at me for a second, then walked into the living room and sat down on the other end of the couch. We didn't say anything for a while. Then, I didn't leave because I was mad. I nodded. Okay. I left because I didn't know what would happen if I stayed. I looked at him. What do you mean? Jamie exhaled slowly. I've been trying to figure out if this was in my head, if I was projecting something. But then you said that. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. His voice dropped, and I wanted to kiss you too. My pulse spiked. But I got scared, he admitted. I haven't really been with a guy before. Not like that, not someone I cared about. I didn't move. I just listened. I thought if I kissed you, it would cross a line we couldn't uncross. And I wasn't sure if I could handle what came after. The silence stretched again. Then I said, you don't have to figure everything out right now. Jamie turned his head slowly. But what if I want to? And then, just like that, the distance between us shrank. He slid closer, carefully, like I might flinch. But I didn't. When he finally reached out, hand resting lightly on my knee, I felt everything I'd been trying to push down crack open. I don't know what this means yet, he said, barely above a whisper. But I want to find out. And then he leaned in. There was a pause, that split-second moment where everything balanced on the edge of a breath. And then his lips touched mine. It wasn't fireworks. It wasn't perfect. It was slow, unsure, a little clumsy. But it was real. And when we pulled apart, he rested his forehead against mine, both of us breathing harder than we should have been. I've wanted to do that for weeks, he said. I laughed softly. You and me both. He smiled. That slow, crooked smile he always had when he was trying not to show too much. And then he kissed me again. Longer, deeper, more certain. The line had been crossed, and neither of us wanted to go back. I woke up to the sound of the coffee machine sputtering. For a second, I didn't know where I was, or what time it was. Then I felt the weight of an arm draped over my waist and the warmth of Jamie's body pressed up behind me on the couch. His breath was steady against the back of my neck. Right. Last night happened. I didn't dare move, not because I didn't want to. I did, but because I didn't want to risk breaking the spell. We'd kissed for hours, in bursts of hesitation and heat. In between, we talked, not just about us, but about everything. The past, fears, little confessions you don't usually get to make when the world's fully awake. He didn't label anything. Neither did I. But the closeness we shared, both physical and not, said more than either of us could at the time. Eventually, we fell asleep, wrapped around each other on the couch. Now, the sun was starting to creep in through the blinds, and I could hear someone, probably our upstairs neighbor, stomping around like they were wearing bricks for shoes. But I didn't care. Jamie stirred behind me, murmured something unintelligible, then shifted so his arm pulled me closer. You awake? He asked, voice scratchy with sleep. Yeah, he sighed against me. Last night wasn't a dream, right? Nope. Okay, he said softly. Good. We stayed there like that for a while, unmoving. The silence between us no longer awkward, but thick with something new. It wasn't tension exactly, more like the awareness that things were different now, that every shared glance, every casual brush of skin from here on out would carry more weight. Eventually, he sat up and stretched, his hoodie riding up to reveal a sliver of skin at his waist. I should shower, he said. Yeah, probably, I replied, though I didn't move either. Before heading to his room, he paused and looked back at me. "You okay?" I nodded. "You?" He gave me a small smile. "Yeah. Weirdly, yeah." He disappeared down the hallway. The rest of the morning was surprisingly normal. Coffee, toast, quiet conversation. The kind of routine we'd built over weeks. Only now, it carried a new layer underneath. An unspoken understanding. But then came the question we both knew was coming. "So," Jamie said as he leaned against the counter, "do we talk about what this is?" I set my coffee down. "You want to?" He shrugged. "I mean, we probably should, right?" I nodded. "Yeah, we probably should." Jamie looked at the floor for a second, then back at me. "I don't know what I'm doing, Eli. I'm figuring this out as I go, but I know I don't want to pretend like nothing happened." "Neither do I. I don't want to rush anything," he added. "I'm not trying to throw labels on it or whatever, but I want this. Us. Whatever that ends up being." That hit harder than I expected. Simple, direct, no fluff. "I want that too," I said. "We can take it slow." He smiled, that same boyish grin I'd seen the day he moved in. "Cool," he said. "But just so you know, I'm probably going to kiss you again before the end of the day." You say that like it's a threat. It's a promise. It didn't take long for everything to feel different, and yet, weirdly the same. Jamie didn't change overnight. He still left his dishes in the sink sometimes, still wore my hoodie more than his own, still blasted lo-fi in the mornings when he showered. But now, when we passed in the hallway, we brushed shoulders on purpose. Now, when we sat on the couch, we didn't sit at opposite ends. We curled into each other without needing a reason. There was no big talk after that first morning. We didn't write out terms or promise anything dramatic. We just let things happen. And they did. Casual kisses in the kitchen, lazy cuddles after dinner, movie nights that turned into tangled limbs and whispered jokes. It all felt weirdly natural, like we'd been slowly building to it without realizing. Still, we didn't tell anyone. Not yet. It wasn't shame. It was ours. A fragile, just-born thing we weren't ready to parade around. And maybe, in a way, we were both scared of what would happen if we said it out loud to the world. The only person who seemed to pick up on anything was Jamie's sister when she FaceTimed one night, while we were sitting way too close on the couch. "Who's that?" she asked, squinting through the screen. Jamie didn't even flinch. "My roommate," she tilted her head. "Why do you look like you just made out?" I snorted. Jamie flipped her off. Later that night, as we lay in bed, "Yeah, he'd started sleeping in my room more often than his. I asked him if that made things weird." He shrugged. "She probably knew before I did." And then, almost as an afterthought, he added, "It's not like I'm trying to hide you." That sentence stuck with me, not because I needed validation, but because it reminded me how far we'd come from that night he stood in the hallway, unsure if he was even allowed to feel something. Now, he wasn't just feeling it, he was living it. We had our first fight about 2 weeks later. Nothing dramatic, just tension over something stupid. Groceries, I think. I was already stressed from work, and he had barely slept the night before. Voices got a little loud. Words got a little sharp. He stormed into his room. I went for a walk. Half an hour later, I came back to find him in the kitchen making tea, his version of an olive branch. He didn't say much, just handed me a mug and muttered, "Sorry for being a freak." I took a sip, then said, "Me too." We didn't dissect it. We didn't need to. It was the first time I realized we could fight and still be okay. That night, he pulled me into bed like nothing had ever gone wrong. His arms slid around my waist. His lips found the back of my neck. "Still like me?" he whispered. "Unfortunately," I said, smiling into the pillow. He laughed softly, then said, "Good, because I'm not planning on going anywhere." 6 months came and went faster than either of us expected. One minute we were strangers on opposite ends of a lease agreement, and the next we were waking up tangled in each other, arguing over what to watch, syncing grocery lists, and kissing each other goodnight without even thinking about it. At some point, His stuff started blending into mine. His books on my shelves, my hoodie folded next to his jeans, his mug next to my toothbrush. His lease technically ended in March. But he never moved out. He never even mentioned it. And neither did I. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't some grand decision. It was just one of those things that slid into place quietly, like the way he'd started reaching for my hand in public, or leaving Spotify playlists open on our shared laptop titled things like Driving with You or Songs for the Couch, 2 a.m. We were us now. We didn't owe anyone a definition. We didn't need fireworks. Just the soft, real thing growing between us. The kind of connection that didn't need to be shouted from rooftops to matter. The night it really hit me, we were brushing our teeth side by side. It was so ordinary, so boringly domestic. I had shaving cream on my chin, and he was complaining about how I always left the toothpaste cap half screwed on, and I looked at him in the mirror and thought, I could do this every day. Not the kisses, not the sleepover, not the sweet words in the dark, just this, him, here, now. Later, lying in bed, I asked, you ever think about how weird it is that this all started because rent was too damn high? Jamie laughed. Best overpriced apartment of my life. He turned toward me, eyes heavy with sleep, but still sharp. You know I'm staying, right? He said. Like, staying. I figured. You're not going to make me move back into the guest room? Not unless you keep leaving wet towels on the bed. He smiled and reached for my hand under the blanket. There was nothing else to say. We didn't need to name it. We didn't need to make it official. The quiet was enough. We fell asleep like that, hand in hand, hearts steady, home found in each other. It's been almost a year now. A full year since Jamie moved in with his boxes and his half smile and turned my quiet life into something louder, warmer, better. Some days, it still catches me off guard. The way he'll reach across the table to steal food from my plate, or how he always falls asleep facing me, even if we start on opposite sides of the bed. There are moments I still expect it to fade, like maybe one day I'll wake up and it'll all have been too good to be real. But it's real. He's here. He's stayed. We have routines now. Sunday mornings at the farmer's market, Wednesday night takeout from the same Thai place. He sings in the shower. I steal his hoodies back. We bicker over dishes and binge-watch true crime shows and kiss in grocery store aisles when we think no one's watching. Once in a while, he'll stop what he's doing, mid-laugh, mid-bite, mid-sentence, and look at me like he still can't believe this is real. And I get it. I can't either. I used to think love had to be complicated, dramatic, some huge thing you had to chase down. But it's not. It's him leaving the bathroom light on because he knows I wake up early. It's me buying that weird oat milk he likes even though I still think it tastes like cardboard. It's knowing the sound of his voice half asleep and the way his face softens when he's trying not to cry during Pixar movies. It's just this. Him, me, us. And for the first time in my life, that's enough.